No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
Jimmy Carter, 39th President of the United States, winner of the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize, died peacefully Sunday, December 29th at his home in Plains, Georgia, surrounded by family. At 100 years old, he is the longest lived president in U.S. history. He's survived by his children, 11 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren. He was preceded by his wife of 77 years, Rosalind Smith Carter, who died on November 19th, 2023. And it says in the bio, Chip, one of his children, says, "My father was a hero, not only to me, but to everyone who believes in peace, human rights, and unselfish love. My brothers, sister, and I shared him with the rest of the world through these common beliefs. The world is our family because of the way he brought people together, and we thank you for honoring his memory by continuing to live these shared beliefs." His faith was so pronounced, and he lived it in a way that even if you didn't agree with his politics, you somehow were endeared to his steadfastness. He was consistent. He had that, pleasant smile everywhere he went. Speak to that and whether the American people could see a brighter side to faith, one that wasn't judgmental, but really did see the world as family.
One can say that he's, in a way, the father of the faith-based initiative, even though it was George W. Bush that incorporated it or implemented it within government. But understanding our establishment clause and that under our Constitution, government shall not establish religion, Jimmy Carter was very open about what faith had done for him and what faith could do for others. And I think that's an extraordinary positive aspect of his character and his moral constitution. And at a time when democracy, many are saying, are at risk, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Jimmy Carter worked the globe as a past president in ensuring fair elections and certifying elections around the globe. And I do believe his moral compass and his willingness to acknowledge faith and to allow his immersion into his faith as part of his policy perspectives helped put him as a trusted figure on the global scale to be able to resolve so many political and even military conflicts around the world. I think on a bipartisan level, America and the world will say, we lost a great man today that left a great legacy.
Of course, being president was just one very small aspect of Jimmy Carter's life and legacy. He spent his time after the White House trying to make the lives of people around the world better. People in Atlanta have been leaving flowers and notes outside the Carter Presidential Center, remembrances for the nation's longest living president who died Sunday at 100 years old. The tributes pouring in from around the world and across the nation. A moment of silence before the Washington Commanders game outside D.C. New York's Empire State Building lit up in red, white, and blue. The flag atop the White House lowered to half-staff.
This is a sad day.
President Biden, vacationing in St. Croix, remembered his longtime colleague and friend and reflected on his legacy.
Jimmy Carter lived a life measured not by words but by his deeds. He forged peace, advanced civil rights, human rights, promoted free and fair elections around the world.
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
Biden, then a senator, was the first politician outside Georgia to endorse Jimmy Carter's bid for president in 1976. He's sometimes called America's greatest former president, a nod to his life of diplomacy and service after his one term in the White House.
I'd say peace and human rights and treating everybody the same has been what I hope will be my legacy.
President Biden said the thing that convinced him to endorse Jimmy Carter for president is the same quality that endeared him to generations of Americans over the last 50 years.
And what Jimmy Carter is an example of is just simple decency. Simple decency. And I think that's what the rest of the world looks to America for.
While pointing out their many differences, President-elect Trump said on social media Jimmy Carter did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. And President Biden has declared January 9th to be the National Day of Mourning for former President Jimmy Carter. Biden has said that he will deliver a eulogy at Carter's state funeral, which will happen here in Washington, D.C. sometime in the next few days.
Tonight, as President-elect Donald Trump is preparing for a widespread immigration crackdown when he takes office 25 days from now, we're seeing a crack between some of his top advisors and his Maga base. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are both facing major blowback from their own supporters for not only backing, but encouraging offering more visas to highly skilled foreign workers. Over the Christmas holiday, Musk posted this online saying, "Think of this like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit top talent wherever they may be." He later added, "I'm referring to bringing in, via legal immigration, the top 0.1% of engineering talent as being essential for America to keep winning." He's talking about H-1B visas, which allow employers to hire highly skilled foreign workers. Musk, who himself is from South Africa, said that he once had this kind of visa, and he's arguing that Silicon Valley is facing a shortage of excellent engineering talent, as he put it. But the annual cap on those kinds of visas right now is at $65,000, with another $20,000 for those who get a master's or a doctorate in the U.S. Musk is being backed up by his partner in Trump's government efficiency initiative, Vivek Ramaswamy. He says it's a cultural issue that there aren't more competitive engineers in the U.S. Here's what he said online: "A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers." But that argument is not going over well with Trump's MAGA base, certainly not online. Some of them saying, "We did not ask them to engineer an immigration policy. Tech wants indentured servants, not high-skilled workers. You don't even know what MAGA immigration policy is." Now, Trump himself, who I should note restricted H-1B visas in his first term, has said on the campaign trail this time around that he did want to make it easier for educated foreigners to work in the U.S.
What I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college, you should be able to stay in this country.
In his clash with the far right over immigration, Elon Musk is now going after the hardliners, the very heart of the MAGA base, labeling them just a few hours ago as, quote, "contemptible fools who must be removed from the Republican Party, root and stem." Musk now finds himself pitted against the likes of Steve Bannon, however, Trump's former White House aide, who came out against Musk's push for H-1B visas, which allow highly skilled foreign workers into the U.S. and has long been the lifeblood of Silicon Valley.
H-1B visas, that's not what it's about. It's about taking American jobs and bringing over essentially what become indentured servants at lower wages. This thing's a scam by the oligarchs in Silicon Valley to basically take jobs from American citizens, give them to what become indentured servants from foreign countries, and then pay them less. Simple. To let them into through the golden door.
Now, Bannon's comments align him with people like the far-right activist Laura Loomer, who has been bashing Musk for days now on this and is even accusing him of censoring her on his own platform. She is the anti-immigrant Trump ally who is now claiming that her blue checkmark was removed, her subscriptions were deactivated, her character limits for tweets and posts on X were limited for what she says is, quote, "raising concerns and speaking the truth about the technocratic takeover of our country in the White House." Now, that was after she posted racist messages like this, saying our country was built by white Europeans, actually, not third world invaders from India.
Dumbass. Dumbass.
But all of this began after Trump named Shriram Krishnan, a tech entrepreneur and investor who was born in India, as his senior policy advisor on artificial intelligence. He's not an immigration advisor for Trump, but this started this entire backlash. And it's culminated today with Elon Musk not backing off of his stance, despite the backlash that he is facing from the Maga right. Instead, he's writing tonight, anyone of any race, creed, or nationality who came to America and worked like hell to contribute to this country will forever have my respect.
The New York Post reported on Saturday, he said, I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in H-1B. I've used it many times. It's a great program.
You know, this is I think, as we talked about yesterday, such an important debate. It's happening entirely among Republicans.
Yes.
And within Trump world. And obviously, what he is talking about here is the fact that, he's obviously defending the program. But what I also think is sort of interesting is that he put into place in his first term a lot of restrictions that protected the program, that reformed the program. And of course, one of the first things Joe Biden did, including opening the border wide open to let lots and lots of unskilled labor into the country that we have no control over, also removed a lot of those reforms to the H-1B visa program so that it was open to widespread abuse.
And in fact, that's what Stephen Miller tweeted back in 2023, talking about the first Trump term and his position on H-1B visas. He said Biden axed Trump admin H-1B reforms, which eliminated its use for cheap labor, raised wages to stop displacement, outlawed substitution, and replaced H-1B lotteries with high-paying offers, which precluded substitutions. Regs were scrapped, and now big tech is replacing Americans. So Trump weighs in yesterday suggesting he supports H-1B visas. Now, in the past, he has looked for reforms to H-1B visas. On the surface, this issue, I don't think, has as deep a divide on the right as one might initially perceive. Meaning, I think a lot of people on the right, including obviously Donald Trump and then Elon Musk, support the idea of bringing in whatever percentage it may be, 0.01%, whatever the number is, of highly, highly skilled people from across the world. The idea of bring your best. But the program can't be abused to box American workers out. That's been the perspective in the past of Donald Trump. And I suspect it will be the position of Donald Trump in the future.
Flashback. Yeah. So, first of all, I'm proud to represent the left flank of the populist movement. And I think we need both flanks. So I'm happy to have this conversation. In terms of what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that went wrong in the Republican Party, but I do have to give you guys credit for a revolution well done. And what I mean by that is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do that here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right. Yes, I love that. So, look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney? My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing populists to boo Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney our whole lives. Take the win. Take the win. Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's. And the Hillary Clintons, and now all of a sudden the Dick Cheneys. What are they doing on our side? Are you guys nuts? Right?
I have to interject. When all of a sudden Kamala Harris is doing the Liz Cheney thing, I said, does she want to lose? I mean,
what's amazing is I said the same thing. Look, Dick Cheney polls at 13%. What lunatic thought it was a good idea to wrap yourself around Dick Cheney? And now for Kamala Harris to come full circle and say, oh, I've got 90 corporate CEOs backing me, and I've got all these executives on my side, and I've got Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney on my side, was so counterproductive. It's not what the left wing stands for. It's not what the Democratic Party should be about. So the problem is the establishment. They are controlled by the donor class, and mainstream media is their marketing arm. They do not do news. They do propaganda. And one more thing. What I want you guys to recognize is that mainstream media you think is against you. You think they're against the right wing. But they also hate Bernie Sanders. And they also hate me. And they also hate the populists on the left. What mainstream media really loves is the establishment and the elites. They're against all of us combined. And if we dare unite on issues we agree on, they will be livid, and it'll be a beautiful day in America.
End of Flashback.
I'm joined now by founder of TYT and host of The Young Turks, Cenk UYGUR. Cenk, thank you so much for joining. That was a clip of you at an unlikely event this past weekend, AmFest, sponsored by Turning Point USA. So not exactly a liberal bastion there, but I wanted to talk about this event in particular because you've taken a lot of heat for going in the first place, and I want to push back against that right off the bat, because I do think if this election has shown us anything, is that Democrats do have to be willing to go into spaces that are more hostile to Democrats. Inherently, if we're going to look at expanding our coalition, expanding our tent, we have to go outside of that tent to be able to do that. So I disagree with people who think that you shouldn't be going there. I think we should be going into the most dangerous territory that we could. That's the only way that we're going to be able to really send our message the farthest. But I do take issue with one thing there. You said in that clip, I knew you guys were for real about fighting the establishment, and you give a bunch of a list of reasons, but you said it to a room full of people who voted for a billionaire in Donald Trump and who was funded by the literal richest guy in the world, in Elon Musk. So I understand and appreciate your argument that Kamala Harris and the Democrats are to establishment. That's a drum that you've beaten for years now, but isn't it insane to think that this Republican Party, this MAGA Republican Party, is the answer? Like there are more billionaires in Trump's cabinet than the buffet line at Davos.
Yeah. So let's take both of those real quick. So number one, I'm going to talk to folks. There's a talking point that we have on the left that we don't realize is absurd, but it is totally absurd. They say, well, if you go talk to them, it legitimizes them. You know what legitimizes them? Winning the election.
Right. I mean, that ship has sailed, right? Like when people say don't go on Fox, as if millions of as if we're the reason that Fox is suddenly going to be legitimized because on a network that millions of people watch on a daily basis.
Of course. And so and they even won the popular vote. But the fact that they won the popular vote is very relevant because we have to win those voters back. And you can't win those voters back if you're not talking to them. So that's point one. Now, on in terms of the establishment, this one is a complicated and really interesting topic. So both sides claim that the other side is bad and their donors suck, but our donors are great. And I always find that conversation intensely absurd, right? So if you say to me the donors on both sides are bad, meaning like not that they're bad people, but that it's bad that this system allows for those kind of donations, which then obviously influence both sides, I say absolutely, 100%. So, but that means you've got to be honest about your own side. So you, as you pointed out, I've been saying this for about 20 years now. And so that's why I'm in the Bernie Sanders wing. And I think when Kamala Harris was bragging about how she had 90 corporate CEOs on her side, that was a terrible strategy. And when, she raised over $1 billion herself, let alone the billions in the PACs, largely a huge portion of that was corporate donors. If you think that they don't have to pay them back with favors, you're just not paying attention. I love you, brothers and sisters, but this is the same exact thing I say to the right wing. So when I go there and I say, one thing they did that we didn't do yet is they did a revolt against their establishment wing within the party. So they, basically kicked out Mitch McConnell from power, etc. We have not done likewise. We have not kicked out the Nancy Pelosi's and the Joe Bidens. And so when you go to do that, there's massive pushback, okay? No way, those are our leaders, and the other side is so evil. We have to take the money, we have to bow our heads to these leaders, and we have to let them serve the donors. No, I don't agree, right? But now when you turn to the right wing, I said later in that speech, I said, guys, don't lower your guard because you have donors too. And then there was a little bit of a hush over the crowd, right? Because when you start talking about Republican donors, who pops to mind first? Elon Musk. And so I'm honest about it in both directions, and I say it to their face. And so I've gone on other right-wing shows and said, who's Elon, what's Elon Musk? He's a donor. He's the largest donor, over $250 million that he gave to Donald Trump. And now all of a sudden he wants regulatory agencies that regulate his companies to be wiped away from existence.
Right.
Well, that's awfully convenient, right? And then who's his donor? Third largest donor, Miriam Adelson, $137 million. If you take the Adelson family, Sheldon and Miriam, Sheldon's passed away, but before he did, they've given over $330 million to Donald Trump, even larger than Elon Musk. And in my opinion, he's handed them foreign policy. So these are the points I make to right-wingers, and who else is even getting in the room to make those points to tell not their leaders, but their voters, guys, remember, you're supposed to hate corruption. That's what you say 24/7. If you do, be careful about Elon Musk, Miriam Adelson, and every other donor that Trump has. What I'm sensing, Brian, is from their audiences, and I'm not just sensing it like through intuition. They're literally doing polls while I'm on their shows. We're doing interactions, calls. When I went to AmFest, talked to literally hundreds of guys who are MAGA, as they came up to talk to me, etc. And this is not the same base as Trump 2016. So that doesn't mean that they're angels. It doesn't mean that everyone on that side all of a sudden changed their mind. Will you find the immovable part of the Trump base as we had before? Absolutely, right? Will you still find some evangelical Christians? Yes, but they have greatly dwindled, both in size and power. So that family values stuff went out the door, partly because they were hypocrites, but partly because the evangelical Christians aren't in charge anymore of MAGA. So the rest of MAGA are kind of bros and stuff, and they don't really care about family values at all. In fact, a lot of the bros are pro-choice. So like when you say that some people on the right or agree with us on things like pro-choice or anti-corruption, the pushback I get from the left is, no way, they're all evil, they're all a monolith, they're all this, they're all that. No, guys, that's unsophisticated. 77 million people are not all the same thing.
Right.
And remember, we don't have to win or care that much about the outer edge of MAGA on the right. You're never going to win those guys over, and that's not the issue. You've got to win over people on the inner edge that voted for Obama, that voted for Biden, and now have voted for Trump. And those folks are not radicals. Those folks need to be won over. And they are different than what the base was before. And so what I'm sensing is, on anti-war and anti-corruption, they really do mean it. Now, if you say, yes, but they're backing Trump, who's doing this obvious brazen corruption we just talked about, I know. So what I'm doing is giving them an opportunity to remember that they're supposed to be anti-corruption, and that, hey, when Trump does favors for the donors, I'm the only one pointing out to them that that's hypocritical, right? Because remember, they're not watching mainstream media. They're not watching our shows, right? So, and their right-wing media hosts are not overly incentivized to point out Trump's hypocrisy.
Totally.
Yeah. So, like, for example, on anti-war, they're definitely anti-war. Definitely. They're not even hypocritical about it. And so if you don't believe me, I love you. It's okay. I get it. We've all been burned hundreds of times, right? But if it turns out I'm right, what I'm hoping people go, oh yeah, Cenk told us this. I remember yelling at him about it, but it turns out, holy cow, they are anti-war, right? On anti-corruption, I think that the instincts of some portion of their base are correct, but we've got to show them, without like ripping their face off, that maybe Trump is also corrupt. So in my opinion, there's three wings of the Democratic Party. There's the establishment wing, there's the populist wing, and then there's what I call the far left wing, right? And you can call that anything you like, and I'm not trying to be offensive about it. And in fact, in that AmFest discussion, I said, for example, I'm extreme left on gun control. I know that my positions would not win in America. They would be very normal in Europe, but in America we have no chance of passing my gun control policies. Okay, so now between these three wings, the establishment wing is Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Pelosi, Clinton, etc. That has led to electoral disaster, and it has done it so with incredible haughtiness. They told us, no, Hillary Clinton is definitely going to win. And this riff-raff Bernie Sanders, nobody wants populism. Well, they were 100% wrong. 100% wrong. So, by the way, Bernie Sanders had a 12-point lead on Election Day in 2016. Obviously, the campaign would have changed that, but I'd much rather start with have a 12-point lead than lose as Hillary Clinton did. But Joe Biden barely won with 43,000 votes in 3 swing states in 2020, even though Trump was awful and he could barely beat him. And then obviously Kamala Harris not only lost every swing state, but the popular vote. So guys, you've got to face reality. Like there's what the world you want and the world as it actually exists. And the world as it actually exists despises this establishment. The right wing does, the left wing does, the middle does, the independents do. So if you keep going, well, look, we've got a new and improved corporate robot, Pete Buttigieg. He's going to go out there and he's going to be in a flannel jacket and he's going to have a populist script. It's never going to work. It's never going to work. America does not want someone who takes donor money, has pretty little talking points, and then does what the donors want, okay? So then you've got the far left, and they say, no, we should have maximalist positions. So on trans issues, I don't want a moderate position. Just give me everything. Give me everything. Everybody has to be called a birthing person. Everybody, change sex operations for people under 18 is fine. No, are you okay? They have to be forced. The professional sports leagues have to be forced to allow trans women, etc. Look, even if you think those maximalist positions are wonderful and exactly right and the most moral thing to do, America is not there. You have to win over America so that you can win elections with that strategy. Right now, if you go with my gun control policy or maximalist positions on crime, trans issues, etc., you're going to lose. So please, why are you handing elections to the right wing? I mean, people are yelling at me for talking to the right wing. I mean, the Democratic Party gave these elections. You should be furious at Democratic leadership for handing these elections to the right wing. So what's the part of the Democratic Party that I think is the most popular and the one that is actually the biggest component of the Democratic Party in the left wing is the populist wing. So that's higher minimum wage, paid family leave, Medicare for all, which is just universal health care that the entire world has, free college at the state level, for government state-run colleges like University of Texas, University of North Carolina. I can go on and on. But the economically populist positions we have that are enormously popular, you have to run on them. And then when you get into office, for God's sake, you have to do them. If you don't do them, you cede ground to the right and you seem hypocritical and you lose elections. So in my ideal world, we all coalesce around, obviously Bernie's too old, so someone along those lines, and that person wins the primary. And I promise to you that if that person wins the primary, we're going to just absolutely clean the Republicans' clock in the 2028 general election.
Early Sunday morning, woman set ablaze on a New York City subway car while people and even some police officers looked on as the man who set her on fire fanned the flames. I mean, it's just incredible, Cenk. It's elicited some very strong reactions from people, as you might imagine. I didn't even know what to make of it. Some stuff seems so overblown. You talk about the subways and are they safe and this and that. This is horrific.
Yeah, it reminds me of the case we all studied when we were younger of Kitty Genovese and being attacked in the middle of a courtyard and no one doing anything about it. Guys, I get it. You're filming it. Wow, it's going to make amazing video, and it did. But I don't know, go tackle the guy. More importantly, go try to help her. But that applies more than anyone else to the cops, but also to the bystanders. And so, look, there's some implications here. What should be done with this guy, given that he's undocumented, et cetera? We'll get into that, but Sharon, more details first on what actually happened.
Yeah, they're just horrific, as we said. Here's what we know right now. A man named Sebastian Zapeta, Guatemalan national who entered the U.S. illegally after being deported in 2018, was charged on Monday with first and second degree murder and arson. Incident began when the victim was approached as she was reportedly sleeping on an F train in Brooklyn early on Sunday morning. Surveillance footage from the train's cameras showed a man walking up to her before setting her clothes on fire. Newsweek with some of these details. We do want to note the victim has not been publicly identified. According to authorities, they don't believe the two knew each other, nor did they interact before or during the incident. Police said the woman was completely covered in flames within moments while the man watched from a bench on the platform at the station. Officers patrolling nearby smelled smoke, went in to investigate, finding the woman engulfed in flames. She died at the scene. Now, according to the assistant district attorney, Ari Rottenberg, Zapeta claimed he didn't know what was happening, saying he was under the influence of alcohol. A lot of discourse, criticism surrounding the police presence and the fact that no one attempted to intervene, help the woman as she burned to death.
Let's go to New York, where calls for answers and accountability get only louder by the minute after police say a man set a sleeping woman on fire and then watched her burn to death aboard that New York City subway train. Horrible story there. Still, no identification for the victim, but people are feeling for her humanity lost. Medical examiners now trying to use DNA to figure out who this woman was. Yesterday, these activists gathered on a train platform. They knelt in prayer in Coney Island, calling her death a systemic failure.
The slogan in this city is, if you see something, say something. But no one said nothing. No one did nothing. They just watched this young lady burn on fire alive. Her life mattered. And we believe that we can do something. Thank God they caught the person that did this. But it's not just the person's fault, it's the system's fault. The system failed. The death of this young lady is on the hands of the mayor. It's on the hands of the governor. Because they're supposed to be providing resources. Millions of New Yorkers ride the train every day. So we need answers.
The man accused of burning a woman to death inside a New York City subway train has just been indicted. 33-year-old Sebastian Zapeta Khalil now faces state charges that include 4 counts of murder and 1 count of first-degree arson. Here's the Brooklyn district attorney earlier today on the severity of the charges.
These are significant counts. Murder in the first degree carries the possibility of life without parole. It's the most serious statute in New York State law. My office is very confident about the evidence in this case.
Prosecutors allege that Zapeta Khalil set the unidentified woman on fire with a lighter on Sunday, and once she was engulfed in flames, he fanned the flames with a shirt. Joining me now, former Assistant Manhattan District Attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Catherine Christian. Catherine, I mean, it's hard to overstate the horror of this story. Suspect now facing 1 count of first-degree murder, 3 of second-degree murder, 1 count of first-degree arson. Walk us through what these charges tell us.
Well, these are, as Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez said, the most serious charges you can have if you're charged in New York. Murder in the first degree, if he were convicted, would be life without parole. Murder in the second degree would be the maximum 25 to life. The same for the arson in the first degree, 25 to life. So it's a statement by the Brooklyn District Attorney about the cruelness, the evilness of this act that this person who's arrested allegedly committed.
Prior to Biden dropping out of the race, he's in the race around June or May. one of my vice presidents, a woman named Joan Corey out of my local, she sits on our general executive board, was at an event with Vice President Harris. And, they're going through the line to get the picture, and Joan introduces herself to Vice President Harris, says, "I'm Joan Corey. I'm on the general executive board for the Teamsters." She goes, "Teamsters? You better get on board. You better get on board." So I call up Marty Walsh. He wasn't the Secretary of Labor, but, he was pushing hard for us to make the endorsement. I'm like, let me ask you a question, Marty. Excuse my French. Who does this lady think she is?
Oh, snap! Now, there are a lot more clips where that came from, but Cenk, just off of that one, what do you think so far in the story?
First of all, I can't get enough of his accent. Teamsters, pushing hard. Okay, I love that attitude. Way to go, Sean O'Brien.
We weren't there, we don't have tape of it. My guess is she probably didn't say, "You better get on board." She probably was like, "You better get on board." But still wasn't like, "How can I get your support?" And still didn't respond the way that she should have. Teamsters have endorsed a Democratic candidate for the past 6 elections for president, but this year they endorsed none of the candidates. In fact, their membership actually went for Trump. According to an electronic member poll that was initiated after President Joe Biden withdrew from the race, about 60% of members believe the union should endorse Trump, while 34% supported Harris and 6% another candidate. But the Democrats acted like the Teamsters owed them their support. And keep in mind that throughout the interview, O'Brien repeatedly referred to himself as a Democrat, despite his critiques of the party. That aside, let's watch O'Brien describe his interactions with President Joe Biden while he was still running for office.
We interviewed every single candidate, that from the people that entered the race early to the last 2 standing, which was Trump and Harris, and we interviewed them at a round table with rank and file members in our general executive board, and we provided each candidate with 16 of the same questions. We have Biden in there, and you could just clearly tell he was not the man he was, and it was kind of sad, because it's sad because you look at it and I think generally, a nice older man, nice older gentleman, right? And what they were doing to him, the Democratic Party, it would kind of look like elderly abuse to me.
Yes.
And, we knew we weren't going to go with him. And then after the first debate.
Wait, but so in your meeting with him, it was obvious that he
it was. So we give 16 questions 2 weeks in advance, the same 16 questions to each candidate. So, RFK answered all 16 questions. Probably most of them didn't answer them how we would like them to answer them, but they answered them. Joe Biden came in and he answered 5 of them. Donald Trump answered all 16.
And things did not go any more smoothly when Kamala Harris took over as the Democratic nominee. Take a look.
So she comes to the round table. Same format, same questions. Rank and file members are asking her questions just like they asked every other candidate. And they were trying to negotiate with us. She only wants to answer 3 questions. We're like, there's 16 questions here. So she answers 3 of them. And on the 4th question, one of her operatives or one of her staff slips a note in front of me. This will be the last question. And it was 20 minutes earlier than the time that it was going to end.
Come on.
100%. And so, you're there trying to get our support. And her declaration on the way out was, "I'm going to win with you or without you."
She thought that or said it out loud?
She said it out loud.
Yeah, that one's mine. I can't even picture her saying, why would you say that out loud? Trump says stuff like that out loud, but I'm not sure why she would say that. I have no reason.
Believe it.
Why would she say it?
What a bunch of dumbasses. Yeah, really.
You don't want to die of cold, toll free.
I'm pretty damn proud of what I'm about to play for you. Lone liberal Luke the Bee's Knees Beasley, who started going to Trump rallies for us now, I guess years ago, right? How long has it been? Luke Beasley appeared on the Timcast Earl, that's IRL, the Timcast Earl show, and he decimated 5 Megapotamians.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Excuse me?
Flashback.
This is an opinion article
How do they define
reporting on a study they did?
There's a press release.
Yeah, UMD-led studies reporting.
So let's start here.
Succinct for you.
My argument is based on. Let's start with what an ideology is.
No, but see, you keep going back to provocative examples of individual acts of violence. The reason when you started listing off instances, I know because I've been in these debates before how people react when I give you particular examples. It becomes about that example and see that's the only thing that you could bring up or whatever. I don't want to do that. I would rather just make it about the data. Let's analyze level-headedly, and let's also acknowledge. This disagreement doesn't take away from opposing individual acts.
So what left-aligned groups do is say that everything outside of us is right-wing, and then you're
just asserting that without any data at all or any.
I just asked you how you define right-wing, and you couldn't do it.
Can you name any other political violence on the right other than J6?
He just listed off a bunch of examples.
I listed a couple of groups, the 3%.
No. Let me just do this.
Hold
on, guys.
I'm
gonna do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this.
I almost had a principle.
Here's how it's defined. This is the ADL's heat map tracker for violent extremism. Right wing, white supremacy. Right wing, white supremacist. Neo-Nazism. Right wing, anti-government. Right wing, other. Islamist, left wing. Right wing, anti-government. Right wing, political, unknown other. Where's left wing anti-government? It's not a faction. Why is white supremacy and anti-government both considered the same thing?
Oh, but left wing only has one category. You could maybe hover over the I to get more information, but it's specifying between the different types of right wing.
Yeah, white supremacy and anti-government are two totally different things, and left-wingers can be anti-government too.
Of course.
So then why call anti-government right-wing twice?
Well, like if there's an anti-government leftist who attacks a right-winger for a political reason, that would be categorized under left-wing violence.
So right-wing, what defines someone who is then anti-government solely? Why would that be labeled as right-wing? And how do you determine whether
who's there are right-wing anti-government ideologies, right, that are of a right-wing nature.
What does that mean, right-wing nature?
Like if you have a left-wing libertarian versus a right-wing libertarian,
what does that mean?
There's differences. I'm gonna botch if I start defining libertarianism.
Well, if you don't know, what are you arguing?
No, I'm arguing that the only research we have bolsters refutation of
what percentage of professors are liberals?
But you could absolutely.
What percentage of professors are liberals?
A bunch.
95?
A bunch. I don't know.
95? So this is the problem we have. Yeah.
What is going on?
Let me explain it to you. So
you're just like.
He's asking you a question.
I'm asking a question.
No, I get that. I'm not a master on how these studies methodologies.
You don't know.
Down, but your only evidence is I saw some violence.
No, hold on. That's sophistry. I didn't say my only evidence was me making a.
Okay, so then what's something not anecdotal that substantiates your argument?
Which portion of my argument? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So instead of just individually, I'm doing,
let's go to
against this violence. You're making it about a left-wing ideology.
Let's go to like the RNC protest in 2008, where a bunch of guys got arrested for having firebombs. They were left-wing individuals. The way that was organized was that the moderate, good Democrats that you're referring to intentionally organized what they call green zone, yellow zone, red zone. The red zone actors were people who were intending on using extreme violence, including lethal force, and they needed the green zone individuals to provide the mass bodies to hide from police. I'll give you an example from something. So that's an actual incident that occurred. Again, and so this is, I'm a regular old Democrat. I'm not far left. I'm not a socialist. I'm coming to protest Republicans.
You're doing it again. That's just a random example. I don't get caught up in individual provocative anecdotes. I would just like to look at a level-headed, zoomed-out, data-based argument.
Okay, so the problem we have here is that when you pull up the sources you claim, there are no conservative sources countering left-wing sources.
I mean, okay, then that's an interesting argument.
So if you can't define what
any data that stop it. If I
stop what? Define it. Define it. Stop define right wing.
If I took the time to properly write out a definition of a right wing ideology, I could present that to you.
I can.
But I don't want to get it wrong, and so I'm not going to throw something out that I didn't know I was going to define right wing. But what I do know,
you don't know,
is that your argument of literally saying any data that I disagree with is too liberal is like, all right, I heard that about crime increasing. I heard that about everything.
You're misrepresenting my argument. My argument is right now I have pulled up the ADL as a source in your favor. However, it has six categories of right wing and one of left wing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how does that make sense? How can we quantify an ideology if there's 6 versions of right wing? Which one is actually the right wing, and how come left is one parent organization? I would actually argue the ADL sides with me in saying left wing encompasses all of it. That means if you're a Democrat, a progressive, a communist, a tanky, an anarchist, any action you take is left wing, and it's all the same ideology. Is that the ADL's argument here?
Well, maybe that in its categorization is an easier way. If you're a part of any of those left-wing ideologies, it's less differentiated.
So then it's fair to say
on a
that,
political spectrum whenever they're studying it.
So that
maybe there's like more unique organizations that specify differently. I don't know.
So you as a left-wing individual are part of the same ideology as the people who want to murder CEOs.
As much as someone who's right-wing anti-government because they're a libertarian is a part of an anti-government libertarian who attacks a cop.
Libertarians aren't anti-government.
Well, look at my point. I'm saying that even within the subcategorizations, I'm not going to say any right-winger who's anti-government is violent.
So the point is...
You want me to read you a definition because you really wanted it?
Of right-wing?
You Googled it.
Let's get it.
All right. Right-wing ideology encompasses a broad range of political beliefs and values that prioritize tradition, hierarchy, individualism, and a limited role of government in certain spheres of life. The term right-wing originates from the seating arrangements in the French Revolution's Legislative Assembly, where conservatives sat on the right side.
So is Nick Fuentes right-wing then?
He would be really, really, really far right, yeah.
But he's not an individualist.
What?
He's not an individual.
Yeah, I didn't say exclusively individualist.
So let's go for it again.
So it starts with a broad range of political beliefs, just like how on the left there's a broad range of political beliefs. I think communists are stupid, but they're on the far left.
So what's the difference between the collectivist right and the collectivist left?
Tell me.
I'm asking based on your definition.
No, I'm asking you. You're the one who brought it up.
Do you not know? This is something I talk about in the show literally every single day. And the question is, do you know what you're talking about? Can you answer it yes or no?
Do I know what I'm talking about with the distinguishment of the government being
left collectivism versus right collectivism?
Yeah, I think the left wing.
What distinguishes Nick Fuentes from Antifa?
Again, tell me. I think you have a great explanation.
I certainly do. I'm wondering, as you've made an argument, if you know what you're talking about.
How does that connect to my argument?
Do you know the difference between various ideologies among the right and the left? You've not been able to define it.
I actually know. I would say I'm not a master in the distinguishments between different ideologies within a side.
Then how can you claim the right is more violent?
Oh, how can you claim the left is more violent?
Because I know many of these different
feelings
factions
and your observations
from my field reporting expertise and the reading of the research.
Well, then what research?
So if we distinguish, say, anarcho-libertarian, anarcho-communism, anarcho-syndicalism, we can talk about tankies, we can talk about social liberals, we can talk about traditional liberals, and we can talk about the political strategies used by each of these groups, and we can talk about how they've operated over the past 20 years, a combination of news reports, political studies, and field reporting from my personal experience.
Right.
And I want to talk about right-wing groups, I can do the exact same thing, as I've done this on the ground as well in many different countries. My question for you is, if you're going to assert the right is more likely to be violent because you read a press release from the University of Maryland, I'm asking you to define which groups.
I dug and I could not find any research, even that came from a right-wing institution, that gave
which right-wing institution?
I'm saying I couldn't find one.
I agree. You can't find a right-wing institution that tracks.
Oh, there are right-wing institutions that do studies and stuff.
They don't track this.
Sure, so maybe because they're studies. Do you see what's happening though? I think
you haven't done the research, and so you're saying
apparently you haven't even less than me. Sheesh.
I have 20 years of field reporting on the ground,
and every single time you come back to
give me substance, bro.
That's what I'm asking you. I'm saying I don't get caught up.
Flashback. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Over the past few years, as so many states in our country grinded their citizens down, we in Florida lifted our people up. When other states consigned their people's freedom to the dustbin, Florida stood strongly as freedom's linchpin. Florida has led the way in preserving what the father of our country called the sacred fire of liberty. It is the fire that burned in Independence Hall when 56 men pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to establish a new nation conceived in liberty. And we thank God and are proud to be citizens of the great free state of Florida. Thank you.
End of flashback.
Starting next Wednesday, no one under the age of 14 will be allowed to have social media accounts in the state of Florida. Florida's HB 3 will allow parents to decide whether their 14 and 15-year-olds can have social media and requires age verification on sites deemed, quote, harmful to minors. Erica Donalds is a guest faculty member at the Leadership Institute and the CEO of Optimade. She joins me now. Erica, thanks for getting up with us this morning, but I just got to know, how do you enforce something like this?
Well, that's the problem. And thanks for having me this morning. That's the problem with the patchwork of legislation that's come in the form of bans of all types in 10 different states, including, of course, now Florida, where we're not even going to really see enforcement of this law until it moves its way through the courts. You know, we have to be very careful, especially in the states, of running amok of both parents' rights and constitutional protections. And that's what we're seeing in the form of these lawsuits. That's why a federal action is so important to stop this patchwork and allow for better enforcement at the App Store level.
Government power slowly encroaching and expanding, and it will do so until the parents assert the rights that they have. But they have to know what those rights are in order to assert them.
We've reached out to the governor for his comment on the bill. His office has yet to respond.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
And that's the game!
You've disconnected from the hive mind.